Well, today we have the achy breaky Ford 5.4 spark plugs to replace on your 2004 to 2008 Ford F-150 or Expedition, things like that, with the 5.4 Triton 3-valve. You might have heard the horror stories about how these plugs break off in the head when you remove them, and those horror stories are true. And I'm going to show you some ways to mitigate possibility of breakage before you even begin replacing the plugs. First thing you want to do is, before you even begin attempting replacing the spark plugs, add a full can of seafoam to your gas tank at about a quarter tank concentration and run that through. The seafoam helps dissolve the carbon that locks the spark plugs in place and that causes the breakage. I've always had excellent results doing this. I've never had a spark plug break as long as the customer did the seafoam job properly before removal. The thing I find that helps mitigate the possibility of breakage is doing this job with the engine slightly warm. You don't want to do it with the engine completely hot, but just warm enough to where the aluminum heads are still slightly expanded, and it also helps soften up the carbon that locks the spark plugs in the head. I know it sucks working on a hot engine, but it sucks even worse when you break these off. There's also a few things you can do during spark plug removal that helps mitigate breakage, and I'll show you when we get there. Now, I cannot stress enough how important it is to use the actual Motorcraft spark plugs from Ford. I have had so many Autolites and Champions and other off-brands that misfire right out of the box. I've had that happen so many times that I have completely sworn off those completely forever. But I'll put a link in the video description where you can buy these. Part number is SP-515. Disconnect a negative battery terminal with 8mm wrench. In order to access that back spark plug, you're going to have to remove the computer. Slide these gray tabs toward you. Pull these connectors out. The ECM is usually held in with 4 10mm bolts, but some of them, like this one, are held in with only 3. Pull the ECM forward, pull it out of there. Now you have to remove the ECM bracket. It's held in with 3 10mm bolts. Snatch that out. Now grab hold of this intake silencer box and pull up on it, and then just pull it away. Now, you don't have to do this, but I always remove this box because I always clean the throttle body in conjunction with doing a spark plug job on these. If you haven't already done it, I highly recommend cleaning your throttle body. I'll put a link in the video description of a video that shows you how to do that step by step. Another reason is removing this box helps access some spark plugs much easier. So start by disconnecting this mass airflow sensor. We'll slide this grid locking tab back and then press this tab down, pull it out. Now come over here and disconnect this breather tube. See that little green clip? Pull that downwards and then just pull that out. And then unclip all the various things that are clipped to the box, like this vacuum line here, and this alternator cable. Take a 10mm deep well socket or wrench and remove these 4 studs. So all those are out. Grab hold of the box and lift up and get it off the throttle body. And it gives you a lot more working space to get these plugs out. Now go along and find the electrical connector for each coil and disconnect it. And there's little release tabs on the connectors that you press down, pull them out. On the passenger side, the release tabs face the firewall, and on the driver's side, they face the radiator. The one under this power steering bracket's a little tricky, but you can get it. Take loose this PCV line by sliding this white tab outwards as far as it'll go, and then pulling up. And then on the valve cover end of that hose, there's another tab. It's exactly the same. Slide it out. Pull up. And just get that tube out of there. Disconnect the rest of these connectors. This next step, you're going to need some compressed air. If you don't have that, just a shop vac probably works too. First things first, cover the throttle body and this open breather hole up with plastic bag, keep all the debris from getting in there. And then just take the compressed air and blast out all around the coils. I'll take a 7mm socket on a swivel U-joint and then go in and remove the bolts that hold down the coil packs. Screws out, just grab the coil, pull it up out of there. The back coils are where the U-joint really comes in handy. You just snatch those coils out. Now, connect the hose or something to your air tool and just stick it down the spark plug holes all the way down. Blast whatever's in there out. And then just kind of move it around in a circle to get whatever's around the spark plugs out. Once you got those all blown out, just go back over them. Sometimes debris jumps from bore to bore. Now, let's get rid of the driver's side. Coil bolts. Snatch these coils out. Now the same deal, blow out the spark plug holes. Some mechanics recommend using a small impact gun to blast the plugs out. I find that works sometimes. Other times it just completely obliterates the spark plug and sends ceramic shrapnel everywhere. So I don't even bother. Now the real fun can begin. Take a 9/16 deep well or spark plug socket and optionally a telescopic magnetic pickup tool. Get this 9/16 on a fairly long extension. To reduce the risk of breakage, turn these very slowly. And just apply steady pressure. Don't just go gung-ho and smash them out. If you hear it start clicking, if you can hear that, that's a good sign. That means it's coming out. Tool, fish that plug out. No breakage. Oh, that's one down. Yep, another intact spark plug. These back ones I switched to a shorter extension. One very important thing to note, make sure that the extension stays in line with the spark plug. Don't let it cock off to one side, because that increases the risk of breaking. Another intact spark plug. We are 3 for 8 so far. Now if you hear that sound, that squeaking sound, that's a good sign. Go with that. Just apply steady pressure. Alright, 4 for 8. Five for 8. 6 for 8. 7 for 8. Alright, now the last one. And there it is. Last spark plug, unbroken. Take our new plugs and start dropping them in. Just position them over the spark plug hole, drop them in. You'll notice the box gives you a torque spec recommendation on these plugs, for 23 to 27 foot-pounds. I always just do 25 to stay in the middle. I don't recommend using anti-seize on these. You don't need to. The updated spark plug design is a one-piece design, so you shouldn't have any problem with them breaking off in the future. Right now, run them down. Never start these with a tool. Always start them by hand. That's true for any fastener in automotive. Get them snug. Take your torque wrench. That's good. And then just do that for all the other plugs. Now you're ready to reinstall the coils. But before you do that, take a dab of white lithium grease and put it on the open end of the spark plug boot. And just go around the circumference of it. Just a little bit to help it slide onto the spark plug. You don't have to go crazy with it. And do that for every coil. Take note that these coils have little plastic tabs that have to butt up against the tabs on the valve cover. You can see it down there. It's this tab right here. So get the coil in there. And when you rotate the coil, it should stop on that tab there, just like that. And I drop the rest of the coils in just to reduce the risk of dropping screws down spark plug holes. Same deal on the passenger side. Now take the 7mm bolts and start them in by hand. Never start these with a tool. Now when you tighten them down, you'll see the way that plastic tab stops the coil from turning. You don't have to make these crazy tight. If you over torque these, they will crack the valve cover. So just about quarter turn past snug is all they need. And I'll just do the same thing for all the other coil packs. Once they're all tightened down, just snap the electrical connectors back on. When they're fully seated, you'll hear it click. If you find these are hard to push on, then just take some WD-40 and spray the inside of the connector, and that'll help slide it on. Carefully remove whatever you covered the throttle body with. Make sure nothing falls in there. Get rid of that. Now if you don't clean your throttle body, then don't be surprised if when you start your truck back up that it idles like shit and idles really low and stalls out and things like that. If you do want to clean your throttle body, see the video description below for a link to a video that shows you how to do that. Yep, and this is why I clean throttle bodies on these always. The body is nice and clean now. So I'm going to take this air box, get it back on there. It helps just to put a tiny bit of grease on this throttle body mating gasket boot thing. Helps it slide on much easier. Now run these studs in. All started by hand. Crank those down. Reconnect this PCV breather, just push it in until it clicks. And reconnect all the various clips and things that attach to the air filter box. And then the mass airflow sensor. Now take the PCV breather tube for the driver's side. Click it in on the manifold first. And then attach it to its valve cover side. Now it's time to reattach the ECM bracket. Remember the bracket bolts are these pointy ones just to differentiate them from the bolts that actually hold the computer on. I start with the middle bolt, just to let it pivot and get the other ones in. And make sure you're not pinching that IWE vacuum line. And just crank them down. Now take the ECM, set it in there on the bottom ledge first. Around these wires, make sure you're not pinching that harness. Start its bolts. Now it's time to reattach the connectors. All you do is push them on, and then you slide this gray tab forward until it clicks. Same thing for all of them. Now take this silencer box, and I'll take this end, insert it into that hole in the fender. Make sure this little rubber grommet gets attached properly. Slide it in between them. And then finally at the air box, just make sure it clicks in. Just like that. That's on. And you are done. You connect the battery. After you've had the battery disconnected on these trucks, it's normal for it to crank a little bit longer than normal. Yep, everything looks and sounds good. If this video helped you, please consider supporting the channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. Thanks for watching.